Benny Seymour, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Mate, what a beautiful morning, man. Nice little session at Atora. How you feeling?
Yeah, you've got it good up here.
Yeah.
Nice early gym sesh, coffee, swim. Can't be beaten, really.
Do you reckon you could ever live here on the Goldie? Because, mate, it suits you. You look, mate, you were very much in your element this morning. We had a beautiful little session, roll in, coffee, swim, sitting in here now, like best ever. You reckon you could do it?
Yeah, it's definitely nice. Probably a few other elements to making a decision up here, but mate, yeah, it's, as I said, hard to beat.
Yeah.
Nice weather. The water's a bit warm though.
Yeah, you were saying that this morning because you're in Sydney now.
Yeah.
Living in Sydney. Where about in Bondi?
Yeah, not far from Bondi.
It kind of works, man.
It does.
That
it
works.
does. I mean, a few more parks.
Yeah.
A bit easier to get around.
You're not paying $25 for a little park. I did Sydney for maybe like 3 years, and that was the one thing I just couldn't wrap my head around. It's like, why am I paying $25 for an hour park and I've still got to move the car? Yeah. Wow. But it was a good session this morning. You feeling good?
Yeah.
What's training looking like for you at the moment?
Bit sort of unstructured, just moving. I was planning to do another HYROX in Brisbane in March, but I'll be away in LA, so still sort of training for that, enjoying 4 runs a week, mixture of long runs, easy runs, some intervals and some sub-threshold sort of efforts there, and then just managing some probably 2 or 3 weight sessions.
When you because obviously start of the year now, are you mapping out your year on what events you want to do? Because you talked about doing the HYROX. You've just come off a couple of really cool ultras overseas last year.
Yep.
Are you mapping out the year now?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like one of those points where, especially being in I was trying to get into UTMB, which is the big Holy Grail race over in France, and that's a lottery. So that just got announced last night, which I didn't get in. So which is annoying, but there's a couple other ways that you can get into that.
So you can still try and get into it.
Yeah. So there's still a way of you got to go to UTA. Do the miler there, which is Ultra Trail Australia in the Blue Mountains.
Right, sick.
I think end of May.
Yeah.
Got a top 10 in that, and then if the top 10 people get an entry into UTMB, I believe. So
are you going to do that?
I think so.
Bro, I might see you there.
Yeah, are you doing it?
Yeah, I'm going to do the 50.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. There's Jess from Lillard, she's doing it as well. There's a couple crew here on the Goldie that are going to do it as well. So we'll have awesome. A nice little fun thing.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. So that's on the card. So the miler, and then that hopefully if you're top 10, you can get into the UTMB.
Yeah.
How far is the UTMB?
That's 100 miles.
Yeah.
Too. So I mean, it's the same weekend as Sydney Marathon. So there's a few things to kind of juggle up, make a decision on what's best and things like that. But maybe UTMB is maybe something for next year. But I think for me, I love having something to work towards.
Gotcha.
Keeps me on the straight and narrow, and so that's the plan.
Mate, there's so many parts of your story that I reckon I'm so keen to talk about. Like obviously, mate, we get to have really fun conversations on this podcast with people who are in different industries, different sport, and it's awesome. But I think I'm really excited for this one, especially, is because I think we've had a pretty similar path, right? You were professional rugby for how many years?
8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years,
yeah.
exact same.
Yeah.
And now what you're doing, and you've transitioned out into the ultra space, and mate, I've started to run, which is cool. So mate, I'd love to see mate, where does your story start in terms of professional footy? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or was that something that you were just naturally good at?
No, something I always wanted to do. I mean, I remember I was born in New Zealand. We're pretty much born with a rugby ball in our hand, and so I was 4 when I started playing rugby, and that's all I sort of knew, all I wanted to do. And my dad played rugby, and all my friends played rugby, and that's just everything that we did. So that was my life. I moved to Australia when I was 13. Went to school over here. Rugby's union probably not as big as it is back home, but still, did that, and that's all I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
Doing year 12, and Dad's like, study, and I'm like, no, I'm training.
Yeah. Why rugby? Why did you ever think about going over to league at all?
No, I didn't. I wish I kind of did.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have had a crack at that. I love league, and having it from being a fly half and having to make decisions under pressure. In league, you get a bit more extra time, I feel like, to make those decisions, and you got a bit of extra space. But that was my life, and I finished school. Was in the Waratahs Academy for 2 years, and then signed my first professional gig over in the Force.
Yeah. And then, but you also played overseas.
Yeah. So
is that when you're like, when you start getting a little bit older, you're like, I'm going to head overseas? Like, well, that's the rugby league.
Yeah.
Is it the same for rugby?
Yeah. It was always a dream of mine to go and see the world and do it while I was working, or having fun and things like that. I remember being young and I wanted to be married and have kids and be playing rugby at 24 in France. That was like my goal.
Really?
And I was in France and I was like, I don't want to be married. I don't want to have kids. But I'm playing rugby here. So that was definitely a cool experience. And like my first game over there was against Johnny Wilkinson and things. So like it couldn't really get much better for me as a young kid that I wasn't in the top teams over here in Australia and stuff, and I just got the opportunity to play top 14 and I just took it.
It's so funny when you're in that like footy environment and everyone's like young, got good cash and just like got time on their hands to pop out a couple of kids, get married, do all the, mate, I was similar. I was just like in that environment, it's like, is that something that I want? And then I finished up a little bit early due to like medical reasons. And mate, I was like, I don't want to do that. Like I would much rather like travel around now and do all these like really cool races. And that's probably a part that I'm really interested in your story is like the transition out. Like, how did you go transitioning out? Were you ready to wrap it up? And how did the ultra space come into it? Like, I know there's a few different parts of it, but what did the transition out look like?
Transition out was pretty tough. I left over a pay dispute, so I was in Italy. Decided through chatting to my parents and going through some sort of hard times of not getting paid on time and things like that. It was just a lack of kind of respect, and we always had to rock up to training on time, put our body on the line and perform every weekend. But when it came to payday and things like that, it's like, it'll come soon.
I've heard stories about that over there.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it doesn't work like that, man.
Yeah.
So I decided to come home, and it was kind of midway through the season. A lot of the Italian boys are all good friends of mine. Foreigners were earning a bit more money than the Italian boys. Italian boys were doing it tough, some of them, and some of them were doing it well. So it was kind of like trying to make a stand and say this is not acceptable to put our bodies on the line and we're winning the comp, right? Yeah. We won the comp, so we won a $2 million bonus for this club, and they still didn't pay us a bonus from the year before. So it'd been going on for a while anyway. So I left and came home and due to being in the middle of a contract there, I wasn't released from the IRB and things like that. I just couldn't sign anywhere else.
How old were you then?
I was 26.
Gotcha.
I think 26 or 27. And so I couldn't sign anywhere else. Came home. I'm a Kiwi. I'm not an Australian citizen, and so I'm a foreign player here. And obviously not good enough to get a foreign spot. So that was kind of it. And I just kind of started working for my old man and on the tools a bit, and I was useless at that. And then I was like, man,
but did you still want to keep playing? Like,
it was kind of weird. Like I reckon for like 2 or 3 years I didn't touch a ball.
Right.
Like I kind of wanted to, but then I'd also accepted like there's got to be something else, and maybe it is your time, and you got out without any serious injuries, and that's it. So maybe make the most of something else, and I like that training element and the sports science element and things like that, and I really loved working with our high performance and S&Cs and trying to get as much knowledge from them as I could.
Were you doing that when you were playing footy? Because I look at like when in sport there's the guys who are like really great trainers, like they're great lifters, but then you've also got the guys who are just naturally like super gifted like on the field. Which category do you fall in? Do you float between the two?
I feel like I had pretty good skills and things like that, but I was always trying to be the hardest worker and trying to be the fittest person to make those key decisions under pressure and make the right decision. Throwing in the deep end, being first 5 at Western Force when I was 20, 21, and Nathan Sharp was there, Pocock, Matt Hodgson, Richard Brown, like all these big boys, and I just remember Pocock and Sharpie put me under their wing and just said, mate, you need to direct us around the field. I don't care if it's the wrong decision, just fucking make a decision. And I remember that day, like I was just like, you have to do this. This is make or break. And so I just started making decisions and made some wrong ones, and as you do, and learned from them and things like that. And that was just like the best advice that I was given from them to make those decisions. And I just took it from there.
I constantly think like, what are some really great things that you take from rugby, not only into like ultramarathon running, but into life?
Yeah.
Do you reckon making decisions is one of them?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely making decisions, putting up with like upsets. So either losing games, not being selected, things like that. Like year 12 at school, year 10, year 11, I made GPS, made New South Wales. And year 12, I was like, you know, I thought Aussie schoolboys, that was the dream, that was the goal. And I didn't even make GPS, like nothing. And I was just like, my thought process was it's over. Like you needed to make Aussie schools to get this contract to do that and to get to those next steps. And that was it. And I was like, oh, it's over. But, you know, my parents and myself kind of sat down. I was like, no, mate, it's going to make you better. We work harder. And then from there, you know, I overtook some of those people that made Aussie schools, and they never went on to do that for various reasons and stuff. And then I, you know, managed to get my way there.
How wild is that though? Because when you are young, and I think that's probably a great thing for people who are listening who are in high school, they're going through. It's like, just because you don't make that team doesn't mean you can't go on and have incredible careers. Like, man, look at some of the guys that we were knocking around with that didn't make the state team. Yeah. And they went on and had like incredible careers. Like they're playing like they're over 100 games in the NRL now. Yeah. I'm like, just because you're in that space, like doesn't mean you can't go on and do incredible things. Not only like play professional sport, but do really well in professional sport.
Yeah. Like I find nothing better than like seeing someone debut at like 26, 27.
Mate, best.
And I'm like, you probably didn't make it at 18, 19 and you got knocked back for 5 or 6 years, but your mindset was like, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I think that for some people, that's like a better achievement, you know, like well done, like 18, you got gifted all the way up. There's a skill set and there's, you know, that's awesome as well. But to have those knockbacks for so many years and to just keep getting back up and going again, like it's going to happen for the rest of your life, really. Yeah. So I think there's so many learnings from that.
Do you reckon that was sort of like the little bit of eagerness that propelled you to jump into make it, or have that eagerness to like work really hard, like getting knocked back and not making the Aussie schoolboy team?
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just took heaps from that. It's happened to me plenty of times since then, in business and in life and stuff like that. And I think it's always those kind of high standards that you hold for yourself, that when you fall back to something, those are your standards. Those are your learnings. So yeah.
Tell me about the ultra space. How the fuck did that come about, bro? Like, because I look at guys who I've played with, and when we were in it, there's no way that we're going to be running when we finish up, because you just do so much of it. And mate, it's so funny. Like even now, like I've been out of the game 3 years, and a lot of the guys that we play with, like everyone's running marathons and like doing that. I feel like because they've got that inner, probably like that little dog that they want to keep going. Yeah. How'd you get into ultras? What's the story?
I think like a few things, I guess, you know, each week we'd get our diary pages. We'd know we're playing on Saturday and, you know, be playing in front of a crowd, or that's your high. That's where you're going. Falling out of that, it's a slippery slope and it can be dangerous, you know, where you're going to go. So I think for me, I didn't want it. That wasn't the goal. I kind of just started running. And then I was like, oh, what's next? Like I did a 50K, hadn't done a marathon. And then I was like, oh.
Well, you did the 50 before the marathon?
Yeah. So I went over to New Zealand, did this race, and I was like, oh, that was cool. And then this friend was like, you know, you need to do this, sign up for this 250K race. And I was like, yeah, sick, sounds good. Like, and just jumped into it. So
50,
that was kind of
50 to 250. Fuck, man.
It was, and I guess that's just like the way I kind of like live my life. Is like, okay, I'm going to make a decision. I don't know how the hell I'm going to get there, but I'll work it out. And I know that it'll work out for the best, because even if we lose or we win, like there's just lessons to be learned. And that's my mindset, I think. So I jumped into that, man. It was, it was a self-supported race.
What was the race?
It's the Atacama Crossing, so 250 Ks across Chile. Yeah.
In the desert?
Yeah, six stages over 7 days.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a couple of four maras a day, 4 maras for 4 days, and then one big day of like 80 Ks, and they give you 2 days to do it.
Shut up.
So yeah, you carry everything on your back and things like that. It was wild.
What was the toughest part of the race?
Didn't try my shoes on before the race.
So you got freshies?
Oh mate, yeah.
You went freshies into a far out.
Full freshies at like 3,000 meters altitude at like 40 degrees. Your feet are swollen, like it was disaster.
Yeah, gotcha.
So cut those open and got let my toes kind of free, but which was great for my toes, but we're running in sand and rocks and things like that. So my feet just got completely destroyed. Yeah. But yeah, it was good.
But you got through the race.
Yeah.
And run me through that. Because I think a big part of this conversation of like why I wanted to talk to you, even us training this morning, like it's around like building resilience or like building like that work ethic. Yeah. I really, and that's the reason why I'm so excited to talk to you today is just like when you're in the thick of it, you know, when you might be doing like a double marathon a day or like when you want to quit, like what do you, because I imagine there was probably times where you wanted to quit throughout that. So I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How do you navigate out of that?
I kind of, in these big events when I do it, I have an internal purpose and an external purpose.
Okay.
My internal purpose never changes. That's my family. My wife and my mum and my dad and my brother and my wife's family and stuff, and just making them proud. They gave me everything I ever needed in my life. So I'm probably never going to find a more purposeful purpose than that. So that's where I fall back to on that. And then my external purpose for that one, I was raising money for a kid to go to the Special Olympics. So he went to Dubai for the Special Olympics back then and won a gold medal in the gymnastics and things like that. So that, for me, I had people raise money for that. It was about $5,000. And I remember at the end of day one, I'm like, man, I cannot quit. Like these people have put their money on the line here. I've got to find a way. So I guess in all of these events, there's always going to be setbacks and stuff, but it's always finding a way. There's a way.
But even to the point, like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but there's got to be times where like you just genuinely believe that you can't keep going. Yeah. Like when you think that you're maxed out, and someone said to me, like when you genuinely believe that you're maxed out, you probably still got another like 10, 20, potentially even 30% left. Yeah. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
You subscribe to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I got a DNF the other week at a 100-mile race in Kosciuszko, which is probably my first one in a while. It was pretty brutal, and I just had nothing left, mentally, physically, and it's something that I never thought I would come across. And I was like, you're tougher than this, it's good. But it was just a thing where I just had to say, like, this is not going to benefit you. Yeah. And there's no bad come from it. It's a learning. I was like, Lululemon's paid for some people to be there and stuff like that. I'm like letting them down. Like, what are my family going to think? And I was just like, no.
These are the thoughts that go through?
Yeah, that's going through. And I was up, we had about a 10K sort of section, which was just climbing pretty much. I think it was up to Perisher. And I was just walking along there. My hip had tightened up. My back had tightened up. I hadn't done the 1%ers leading into it. No stretching, no mobility, coming off, New York Marathon and a big training load and block, and I shouldn't have been there. But anyway, I thought I'd give it a crack, and it just didn't work out. So pulled the pin on that. But that was definitely a bit of a shock, but learnings.
I love that, learnings. So you look at it not as a failure, but as a learning?
Yeah, 100%.
And that always?
Yeah, always.
Really?
Yeah.
Run me through it.
Something I've probably learned over the last couple of years and running businesses and things like that. It's just a mindset you got to have, because I'm in the franchise space. Franchising's bloody hard, and there's just constant sort of pushback on certain things, and it's in any business. And when you're at the top and you're thinking ahead and you're trying to be at the forefront of these things. I go to America and I'm like, this is what they're doing. I come back here. This is what we need to implement. And some people might not think that that's right at the time, but there's things that we've implemented that a year ago when I said it, they were like, oh no, that's not going to work. And I know that there's things that we're going to implement, and in a year's time, we're like, why didn't we do that earlier? So I think when you're in that position, there's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be negative people or negative thoughts and things like, am I doing the right thing? I just think you got to back yourself, within reason. But that's something, that I've probably learnt over the last 3-4 years, and something that I probably really try and sharpen that tool as much as I can.
I love that. And I love how you look at it as a tool. Like, instead of like thinking this is a failure, like I'm a failure, and like have a bit more, maybe potentially a bit more drive. It's like, it's just a learning, and it's going to help the next race. I think about that all the time. Even we did, I think it was off the back of the UTA 50, maybe when I finished up footy, I think I had like maybe 6 months off, did like a walk around Portugal, but then jumped into that on hardly any training, bro. Like, I think we were like 10 weeks out, and me and my mate, we just signed up to it. And mate, I'm not built like a runner. I'm like a little brick, right? And we came off the back of it and we just did it. We just grinded it out. And it was nice to have that sense of accomplishment. Like, you finished the race, it was great. But like you said, didn't do the 1%ers. My ankle was cooked afterwards. My back was cooked. And then I was out for 6-8 weeks afterwards. Yeah. And now leading, because we're going to do it again this year, I'm like, okay. Went and saw the physio last Monday. I was like, can we build a good base? Yeah. That's what I mean. So it's interesting the way you look at it. And so it's like, that's just a learning, and you take it on to the next one.
It'd be interesting to see how you go, because I feel like I've done done a number of events and tried to train for them specifically and things like that. And I kind of always like, oh, this looks fun. I'll just do this one, or oh, I'll just do this thing. And like, I don't feel like I've ever gone into an event like fully prepared with like a 9-month prep, which will not 9 months for this one, but a couple of months for this one. So it'd be interesting to see like how you go. Like I think, you know, no matter how prepared you are, it's always going to be hard because you're always going to push yourself to the limit. So, but it'd be awesome to see.
Do you have like many injuries that you've taken from footy into running? Like, is there any little niggles, or it's just life?
I had like a syndesmosis in my ankle. I had that screwed back together, and that's kind of always like my knee to wall range isn't as good. So when I'm running, there's a few issues there, and it probably goes all the way up my back. And then I had a discectomy in my back. So like decompression in my spine. So I had that sort of worked on, and it's not ideal. And if I don't stretch all the time, like I don't have full sensation down my right leg, and man, I'll trip over just walking down the street. But
I am keen to talk about your spine, but before that, because I imagine like even now there's a lot of people who like want to get into the running space. I feel like it's a hot topic now. Like I feel like HYROX and marathons. Like, these are the two things, especially guys and girls who are coming out of sport, and they've still got that competitive like little dog in them where they want to go for things. What would you recommend? Like, if you had an ideal, like you said, like obviously it's not always perfect, but if you had like an ideal length of time before a train, like think me, like we're coming up to the UTA, what would you do? Like is it running? Is it cross training? Like we obviously, like I love lifting. I don't want to stop lifting. Did a good little upper body pump this morning, which was nice. But it's like, what would you do? Like, what would you recommend for someone like me coming into it?
Well, I think you would be different to someone who's been sitting in a desk all day. Like you've got that running load in your legs from years of playing league, whereas someone who's sitting at a desk all day doesn't have that load. And it's the same as someone who's been on the tools or laying bricks all day. Like they've been on their feet for ages. It's like back in the day, all these farmers who have all these records, they were just walking, mustering cattle and sheep for hundreds of Ks a week, just built like nails, so tough. So I think there's that balance of training load and what you do on your day-to-day life. And then there's also that balance of like, we love just being in the deep end and throwing ourselves in there. So for some of us, we like signing up a week out from a race and just doing it and getting that like hard feeling and finishing it. But to go into a race, properly prep for yourself, like a 50K, I do like a 16-week sort of block. But if you've been training, doing 2 or 3 runs a week and doing some weightlifting, and strength stuff, like you could get away with 12, I reckon. Definitely.
But also mixture of the weight, like lower body weights in there as well. Like have a good mixture of both.
Definitely. A lot of strong, squat, deadlift, and then a lot of single leg, some lunges. Work on the back of our legs. We're always going forward, so RDLs, hip thrusts.
And what would you say? Like, what would your advice be to someone who's like wants to get into the space but hasn't had that background of training before? Like obviously, like we talked about it being so popular. What would you recommend to them? Not from a like fitness training point of view, but almost from like a mindset point of view. Like, how do I just like take that first step? Like, what would you say?
I guess there's two kinds of people. Someone who's a bit shyer, doesn't want to be known to be doing that or things like that, which is awesome. But then there's the people who are loud and proud and don't care what anyone thinks. If you're kind of that shy person, I'd be going to the park somewhere, not telling anyone, and just going and running as long as I can, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, and then walk. And then get back running again and do that like 5 times. Run, walk, just build that base. Get going. Once you get that feeling of running, as we all know, and that's why everyone's hooked on it, like the euphoria, we achieve something, we're going places, like you just get addicted to it. So I think that, that run, walk and things like and build that up is definitely the way to go down that path. But if you're someone who's done a fair bit of running and stuff, I reckon just throw yourself in the deep end. Like it's you versus you, as cliche as it is. Like do a 5K, do a 10K. You don't have to go for the marathon. And just start small.
Do you reckon it's a confidence thing for those people who are starting to get into it?
Yeah, I think so. And especially now because so many people are doing it. Like you do an event, it's like, oh, what are you doing next? It's like, I finished the race just now. Just let me have a beer.
Let me sit and enjoy it.
So I think there's that like, what's next? But I think the enjoyment, get a friend, these run clubs are just going berserk. Like, everyone's joking that's the new dating app, but like literally like there's the ones in Sydney, there's 1,000 people there. Like grab a mate, there's got to be someone that that's running, your mum, your dad, whoever it is, and just go to these run clubs. They're all pretty inclusive. And there's no judgment there, so just around it.
Man, I love that. Like the building environment piece with the confidence. Like, because I always think like when you see it, you're more likely to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you've got someone who has been in a similar position to you and had never ran like a couple Ks, but then they're doing a 5K and potentially they move on to a 10K, and then like next thing you know they're doing a half marathon later in the year. Like, I think that's really cool, but it's just starting.
Yeah, just starting.
Just starting. I have a friend. She wants to get into running. She's like, oh, I'm scared. Like, I'm nervous to go to a run club because everyone's so fast. And like from outside looking in, if you've never done it, you see all these people who like feared they're running. It's like, no, the run, like people are walking at the run club.
Yeah.
Like, feel like they don't feel like you need to do the 10K. Do like a K out and a K back, or like what you said, maybe like fight like a couple minutes on, 1 minute off.
Yeah.
I love that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. You've obviously done a heap of events. Like, you've done some really incredible ones. What's been your favorite? What's been one of your favorite ones?
Oh, tough question. I think the TDS race I just did in France. From Italy around Mont Blanc back to France was definitely up there for a number of reasons. Picturesque scenery.
That's the one you shot for the doco.
Yeah.
To the Streets doco.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we did that. That was sick. The lead up to it, tried to put in a pretty good training block, which is always hard when you got to run hills and you live in Bondi. So that was definitely a challenge. But
Bronte Hill doesn't cut it.
Yeah, it doesn't cut it. Watson's Bay, Heartbreak Hill. I mean, I'd hate to know how many times I ran that. And ran down it like fast. So that was the training plan and stuff. Like, that was awesome. And it was a good prep and to go over there and do that. But it's super hard to go over to somewhere it's altitude and mountains when you live at sea level.
Yeah.
Another awesome one that I've done that I've loved is Coast to Coast in New Zealand. So sort of an adventure race. You start on the west coast of the South Island and then run, ride and kayak all the way back to Christchurch.
Really? So is it kind of like a Defiance? Like
similar, yeah. So you can do teams or you can do single, and you can do 2 days or the single day, like longest day, which I did. And it's about 250 odd Ks. So you start on the beach, you run 3 Ks, you get on your bike, you ride 50, then you run over this peak. It's about 35 Ks mountain run across all those rivers, and like it's nuts. And then run again, kayak 75 Ks down the river, which is a pretty sketchy river. A bit different to Sydney Harbour. I flipped my kayak there. You're in a skirt and everything. You got to pull yourself out, and there's just tons of water flipping on you. I thought I was brown bread, but
right.
That was something that was cool to train for. And to accomplish. Yeah. But I remember a training block, I was doing like 25 hours a week. And my coach was like, mate, it's not enough.
It's not enough.
I'm like,
that's a part-time job, man.
Yeah. So I think choosing your event wisely with your time frame and what you can put towards it. But I mean, it was a sick event.
It's also, I'd love to talk about how you balance like the stress of training, but then also like the stress of life, because you're obviously you got your fingers in a lot of pies, like you got heaps on. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I do a really good job.
Hang on for dear life.
yeah, exactly. just hold on. And no, I think time management is something, and that that's a goal of mine this year, is just to not waste any time.
Give me a practical takeaway. How are you implementing that?
No hangovers. Stay off the piss.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of them. Like, it's just I don't have time. But yeah. Stop aimlessly scrolling, stop looking at other people doing other things, take goals from it. But like the things that I've got going on this year with the team around us is like where we want to get to. We don't have time. Yeah. So we need to be 100% focused on everything that we do, and I need to be present in every single moment. And that's probably something that I need to work on in like my home life, is being present, and something that, I'm definitely working on.
Yeah. Because I look at what you're doing, like you have to put in time training for the events that you want to do, but then you also run multiple businesses, but then you also want to be a present partner as well, and be around family. Like, I know family is super important to you as well. It's just I look at that, and it's something that I struggle with as well. I'm like, well, what works? Like, I know I did a year off the drink last year, best thing ever, like so much time, and I'm like, what are some practical tips? Like, what can I take away from what you're doing? And it just seems like time management, man. Yeah,
definitely. And just finding like things that like my wife and I can go for a walk with our dog and spend some time there. And I need to get in the kitchen and start cooking. Just like little things. Like, it's just, my wife is an amazing cook and she loves cooking. So like sitting at the breakfast bar while she cooks and we have a glass of wine, or just that 10 minutes, 15 minutes there is just so valuable, rather than like trying to scroll and get some content ready for the next week or programming and stuff like that. So there's definitely some early mornings there, like getting my runs done early and then finishing those so that I can spend the day there. But, there's some of these are like 6-7 hour sessions. So it's, there's not much sleep, which we know is so important. So also trying to focus on that.
But I love that. And we talked about the events that you love. Like that New Zealand race sounds so sick. I kind of want to do something like that. You got my mind ticking. But what about the events that are tough? Like maybe not even an event, but even just like a time in your life. Is there a time where you thought like, this is really tricky, I'm not sure how to navigate out of it, but then you still got out of it somehow? Is there a time that stands out?
Like a few, like definitely in some of the events, day 2, day 3, or things like that hurt or that I fall back on and think like, yeah, you did get through that. I mean, TDS race, just over in France there was an 8-hour block where there was things coming out of me from both ends and it was pretty gnarly. And I sat down at an aid station with at this peak. We're about 3,000 meters up. I think they chop it in the first aid tent there, and they're like, you can't finish here. And I don't really remember a whole lot of everything that kind of happened. Like I kind of came back to it. I was wrapped in a blanket. Yeah. And I remember getting my phone out and turning it on and texting my crew, and I'm like, boys, I'm done. Like I'm out. And the guy said, you can either go forward 4Ks, 700 meters descent, which was like a cliff face, or 16 Ks back. And I'm like, I'll come back.
Yeah, respectfully, I'm not doing that.
So I kept moving forward, and I think that 4Ks took me a few hours. Like it was pretty gnarly. I got to my crew, and I just said, I'm out, like I'm done. And all 3 of them there were like, yeah, mate, all good, just lay down. We'll be right. We'll get you some food. And there was no out. They just didn't give me an out.
Wait, so but you were checked out. You were ready to go. And but why were they pushing out? Like they obviously would know how far to push.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Which is what I needed because I continued on.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, I'm done. And then in my head, I'm like, man, I've been flown over here. I've got the team here. Like I can't do this. Blah blah blah. And Willix was head crew, and he was just like, here's some bread, here's some oil, here's some soup. I've been researching what we need to get into you because I hadn't eaten or drunk for 8 hours. I couldn't hold anything in. Yeah. Water, nothing. So we needed to get something into me and some calories, and I just lay down and just closed my eyes for 15 minutes, and that was it. And he was like, righto, you're on. And you got to get to this next checkpoint. You got 2 hours to get there, go. And I just had no option. So for me, that's kind of like I need that sometimes. And I think everyone does when your mind gives up. Like sometimes you do have more, but you just need that kickstart or that kick up the arse. And for me, that was kind of it.
Mate, the doco was sick.
Oh,
I messaged you afterwards after I watched it. Because it popped up. I think a trailer popped up to it, and I was in Sydney, just training. I think I had a big day. And me and my mate, we almost weren't going to train, and then I watched the trailer. We ended up training because I was just like, "Fire out, Ben, you can do that." I was like, "You can get your ass up and do like a little circuit." But that part of the doco where you were tapped out, and then I think you end up getting to the next checkpoint, and then you're all wrapped up. And then I think the director or one of the parts of your crew were like, I've never seen Benny like that before. Like, he's just like, I don't know how we're going to get through it. And then the fact that you kept going, and then you end up passing like a heap of crew on one of the points. I'm like, Benny's got that dog, man. That's when I messaged, was like, bro, just got a lot of inspiration from that doco.
No, thanks. The boys who put that together, AC boys, were fantastic in putting that together and really showcasing the feeling or making you feel what I was kind of feeling, which was awesome. Matty Willix coming back after it, he was like, I don't know how hard to push you. And for him, he's kind of, working with Lululemon, he's got me over there, and he can't really have an athlete die on the course. So he's got to have that balance as well. But he said he'd never kind of seen me like that. I was definitely in a dark place, but we had this joke between us. It was like, what's your kill count going to be to the next checkpoint? And so it was like, the sweepers came and they were like, mate, where have you been? I've been sleeping. He's like, you got to go. I was dead last. Yeah. And Willix is like, I need 20 kills by the next checkpoint.
What do you mean a 20
So like running past someone.
Oh,
essentially, we're not killing anyone.
Gotcha.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And that was the next thing. It was like 20 kills. And I was like, fuck, all right, sweet, let's go. So I got to the next checkpoint. I was like, how many? He's like 30. I'm like, sick. How many do you want? He's like 60. I'm like, all right, let's go.
You guys were like feeding off each other.
And I was like, next one. He's like, how many? He's like, 160. I'm like, oh. I was like, let's go.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah, and it was just a thing. Like there's a video that we've got together between us. You're running with poles, and I've got this 360 camera in one arm. I've got my pole, and I'm like, That's for you, Willix.
Yes,
You're
man.
gone.
But I love that you made it like a little game.
No, I had to.
But I swear that would like change your mindset as well.
Yeah.
Just being like, okay, I've got a little challenge to get to, and it probably would take your mind off like all the shit and pain that you're in.
Oh, man. Like 30 hours. It took 37 hours. So that was probably like 28 to 30 hours in. You know, you haven't slept for a day and a bit, and you're in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. There's people dropping like flies, and there's cows and goats, and you don't know what you're seeing.
Mate.
You had to. Yeah, it's always good to play some games.
Do you enjoy making these docos? Because I enjoy watching them. Like, do you enjoy putting these like really cool like adventure race docos content together?
Yeah, I think I love it. I love doing the race. I love working with these boys to create it and showcase what can be done. And I think it's awesome for me to be able to go and do these events, but I think it's also awesome to have like the amount of people, without sounding cocky or anything, that have been like, oh mate, I used to play rugby. I'm loving what you're doing. You know, going and doing that stuff. I think it's like, you know, you're not maybe I'm changing people's lives or something, which is like cool, but I think like some people would never have done that.
Right.
And then, you know, like, I've got mates like Aiden Guerra, right? He's running marathons.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, bro, you're doing this 30K race in a couple of weeks. Maybe I should come. It's like,
Yeah.
Dusty would never have done that before, you know? Like, not saying I did that, but just these people who are pushing their limits and getting into this physical and space of running, and it's great for your mental health, and it's just way better than doing other things.
It's so good. And Gussie also one of the great men as
Yeah.
well. He's coming to Goldie next week.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah. He's awesome. We have a good couple of nights together. But he's the perfect example, or even any guys like that, when they come out and they're unsure what to do.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, and you're a perfect example of like when you come out, you sort of don't really know what you want to do, like, and you're trying to figure it out. And the best advice that I got and that I pass on now is just like, just try certain things.
100%.
Like, just see what you like doing. It might be HYROX, it might be running trails, it might be whatever it is. But I think there's a lot of us who have been in that space who are like, they just need something to keep going. Like, there's sort of two guys. There's guys who like lean into that stuff and then they kill it. And then there's other guys who are a bit unsure and then they might fall into like drinking, drug abuse and all the things.
Yeah.
But I love what you said, like how physical activity, it actually like helps your mental health.
Yeah.
Do you find that? Was that part of the reason why you kept training after playing?
Yeah. I love the aspect of pushing my limits, being in dark places, finding ways to get out of it and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think another massive key takeaway that I took from playing or being in that sports environment was just networking with people, trying to be a good bloke, meeting lots of people, because who knows where it's going to end, right? Like, how many players have met people at sponsors events and then 10 years later they're working for that person?
Right.
You know, like, that's where, if you're a player of any sport, I think is like something that you really need to double down on. Make the time and effort to meet people. Give them the jersey, give them the training kit, you know, like a little bit for us is just so much for these people or their kids. And I think I've seen so many friends and I've met so many people and still connect with so many people from that environment of just being networking.
Yeah. I love that. I don't know, even before that, when you said like the ability like to do hard things, and you know when like you're so close to mates in the team, like I think people on the outside, like, you guys are so close. We think, yeah, you've like gone through pre-seasons, you've done like so many hard things together. So when you're doing something that's hard with someone, I think naturally you just become closer. Do you reckon?
100%. I can't agree more. Like, even now, watching my brother-in-law, he's at the Waratahs.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen their like grappling sessions and tackling sessions every Friday, they do these things and they post it on Instagram, and it's like completely gone viral with like UFC people being like, this is completely nuts.
Really?
Like, they're just
What are they
bashing,
doing?
just bashing each other on mats on a Friday. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I know like the boys are hurting, but I know like how bonded you are with those boys. Like, you know, like if you've got 10 seconds, you get up off the deck and you're going for your mate.
Yeah.
I think like that kind of do hard shit there. And then obviously it's harder when you're outside because you're by yourself, you're not in that team environment. Yeah. So you still need to dabble in that space. But yeah, do hard shit and just bond. Like,
bro, I did a race, well, the UTA race, I did it with a mate. So I met this guy at City to Surf on the Gold Coast, and we just ended up running together. I met him on the start line, and he was just a dude. Like, he was just a guy, and I was like, fuck, this guy's epic. His name's Benny. And then he lived in Newcastle. We ended up just kept chatting, ended up doing a couple runs in the lead up to it, and then we ended up going to the race together and running it together. And it was so fun, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, like I like training by myself. I think that's fun. But I love training with mates so much more. Yeah, like, one of my favorite things, even like to catch up with a friend, I'm like, let's go for a run, let's go for a lift. Even this morning, let's do a lift before we come in and do the podcast. Yeah. And so after that, like, I don't see him a lot, but we've got that experience together. And so it's just like going forward, I was like, I love doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Will you ever look at doing events with crew, like with like doing like a partner event, or is it pretty hard like in the ultra space? Like you kind of need to be solo.
I've done Defiant, which is paired up. I've done 2 or 3 of those with a mate of mine called Warren, and was. He's been around the traps. He's ex army, and mate, he's completely psycho. We're psycho together, and we just absolutely love it.
Yeah, man.
Most people who are running next to us or something think we're abusing each other, which we are, but we love it.
Yeah.
And that's just like we've had some wild times together.
Gotcha.
He's abusing me, telling me it's a gift, like I'm not stopping. You're not, I'm like, I need to walk. My heart rate's 200. I can't see. And he's like, mate, you're not stopping. I'm like, I need it. And he's like, all right, you got 20 seconds. Walk fast. And like just shit like that.
Really?
And then he'll bonk and he's trying to take the last bit of my Coca-Cola. And I'm like, oh, now you need something,
good, man. Yeah.
But no, he's a beast. He's a beast.
Before we wrap things up, I am conscious of time. I do want to talk about when you got your spinal surgery. Because like how from what I've heard, it was a combination of like lifting heavy, but then also trying to run like long distances as well. Can you run me through that?
Yeah, I guess I always wanted to be strong and run faster and run longer.
Yeah.
And someone was saying that you can't be strength or train strength and train endurance at the same time. And I was like, well, don't tell us what we can and can't do.
Is that coming from people who are running or people who are lifters?
People who are lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I lifted 250 kilos deadlift. That was kind of a goal of mine. And I was like, I'm going to go run a marathon. And I did it. And I was like, sweet, this is awesome.
Same day?
Same day, yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. Fucking
bit
hell.
of loads through the spine.
Yeah.
But that didn't, that was not anywhere near close to when the time that happened. But, down the track, I think overload of doing a lot of hinging, a lot of squatting, a lot of running, being heavier, things like that, just, took its toll. Decompression of my disc down in my back, L4, L5 or something like that. So it's down the bottom. You can get a bulging disc, and then you can get a protruding disc, and then my disc completely burst. So I had drop foot, couldn't run and things like that. When I saw a surgeon, and then he just said straight away surgery. I'm like, oh, can I get an injection and try fix this because I don't want to get surgery. He's like, no, mate, it's too far gone.
Yeah,
so
you've burst it.
You've burst it. And I was like, am I going to get feeling back on my leg? Because it was something that was like really pissing me off. And he's like, yeah, mate, you'll get it back. And I remember post-surgery, it was a couple of hours back and laying in my bed, and I could feel my toes. And I was like, I'm back, I'm on. How good is this? Literally half an hour later, gone.
Really?
Yeah, so
how far down? Like what you said?
Sort of from my knee down, the sensation, like I can feel it, but the sensation's definitely not anything compared to what it should be.
Really?
Yeah. So
what, describe it like numb? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, it's definitely numb. My proprioception on that side of with my ankle and things like that's not ideal and not up to scratch. But it's just nerves. Nerves take ages to grow back. It might grow back. It might not. But it was something that post-surgery, it was always playing in my mind. I couldn't sleep. Like I was getting this nerve pain down my leg and then weird sensations. And then my foot would keep moving or like reckless legs or whatever it is. And I was like, mate, this is nuts. Anyway, now I don't think about it.
Right.
It's gone.
What was the recovery after the surgery?
I was 6 weeks of not lifting a finger, either standing up or laying down.
Yeah.
I could sit on the toilet. That was it.
Yeah.
And then it was probably another 6 months after that of being pretty slow and steady.
Run me through your headspace there, because I imagine you're obviously a super fit guy. For me, like my coping mechanism is when I'm ever stressed is to train.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're similar.
Yeah.
But what did you do when you couldn't train?
Yeah, I probably wasn't the nicest person to be around, my wife would say. It was definitely tough for both of us. I couldn't lift anything, a plate, a backpack, nothing. Yeah. So my wife looked after me, which was amazing. I couldn't exercise, couldn't really walk. I was on some pretty heavy and strong meds for about a week, and then I got off those. I don't need this, done. And sort of just had to manage it. It was definitely like another learning in my life to not put all my eggs in one basket, which would be training and events and things, and just work on different things in my life and in my brain. Just pick up other strengths.
Gotcha. And what are the other strengths? What are you leaning into?
Man, I've got like an active brain that's just always thinking I need to be learning something, and it's not always like might not always be like cool things. Like I love reading the paper of like what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and just thinking things like that. Dabble in a bit of crypto and things like that. So that was kind of the time. I think it was during COVID and stuff. Like I was just watching YouTubes and reading Twitter and all these kind of things around that, and investing that way. But yeah, I think just always like, my wife will say you're always doing something.
Yeah. I love that. I think there's probably worse things to be doing
Yeah.
than always working. And then even like the way you lean into like your business, right? Like we were talking when we're in the water, you're like, I want to cultivate like this environment that's kind of like your lifestyle, like, right? Like you've got like a training and the hydrate. Like, mate, talk to me. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are the business ventures coming up?
Yeah. So, got Recovery Lab, obviously, making it affordable and there for people to use and everyday people. As an athlete, we were using ice baths and saunas 10, 15 years ago, and people couldn't go and get access to those. So we're making that accessible to people now, which is awesome, and people are feeling better. We're teaching them and educating them on peak performance and what they need, and that doesn't just go for athletes, like high-performing business people need that.
Business athletes.
Stress.
They're fucking athletes themselves, right?
Stress management of that, and then a new mum who's not sleeping, like that's super important for them as well. So we create the space where they can come in, do multiple modalities and things like that, which is awesome. Online training platform, which is something I've been doing for a while, but probably should have doubled down on a long time ago. So I'm doing that now, which is cool. Obviously, the running space is crazy. Everyone wants to be a runner, so managing that, managing load and stress, and then increasing their strength, which will hopefully get them going for longer. And then Rise Supplements is about
which is on the cards. It's
why
you're here on the Goldie.
Why I'm here.
What were you doing?
We're just sort of signing off on some flavor profiles and things like that, which is cool. So our first range. From now it's sort of probably 12 weeks away, which is cool. So we're just testing some flavors, making sure that we were happy with them. We've got some samples to go away and give to our family and friends and make sure that they enjoy it. I trained on it this morning, which was awesome. Seemed to work, got that cognitive function and really aligned in, which is what we're after. So
you were dialed in this morning, you were looking good. But I reckon that's a cool thing that like, because you're in the space, like you're in the thick of it, whether it's like HYROX, talking about training for HYROX, but then also ultra stuff. So you're like the perfect like guinea pig to try like your own stuff. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, I just feel like I've been taking so many other things for so long and working with other brands and stuff like that, which is awesome. It's been able to connect me and network me with people and put me out there and stuff like that. But I was like, oh man, double down on yourself. Like, you know, I've had a couple of people ask me to do things and I was like, no, this is the time where you double down and back yourself.
Yeah.
And that scares the shit out of me. But if I'm nervous and excited and scared, then I'm in the right place, I think. So
that's so cool. It's almost like you're creating an environment and building business around your lifestyle and what you want to do. And obviously, like if you're doing it, so many other people are going to want to do it as well.
Yeah. I laugh about it. I call it the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Train, supplement, recover. That's what we want to do, and then there's probably some mindset stuff in there and see how we go.
I love that, mate. That's such a beautiful thing. Before we wrap up, what's your long-term goals? Like, do you think about like 5-10 years down the track on what that's going to look like?
Yeah, I think obviously having a family and doubling down on that and really being present. And I've been lucky enough to do a lot of travel, especially this year with my wife for events and holidays and things like that. So that's awesome, and that's something that I want to be able to do with my family down the track. So I think building that business or businesses that allow me that freedom to do that stuff is definitely where I want to go. And in 5 years, 10 years time, I mean, I'd love to build Rise up to be the number one sports supplement brand in Australia. And it's not just supplements that we want to do. We want to develop into and many other realms of it in terms of activewear and things like that. But we want to have a community where we're supporting people from the grassroots and on that journey all the way to the top. So we're working with athletes already at the moment that are grinding it out, and we're supporting them, which is cool before we've even got products and stuff out there, So I think it's just building those relationships with those people that's awesome to see. And we've got some young kids who are going to be Ironman and some elite female runners and some bodybuilders and just people who are cracking on and giving it a go, jumping out there and in ways that we can support them.
Mate, you talked about early on in the conversation how pivotal like your parents and like your family and your friends, like, and how I guess like great they were for you growing up. You mentioned about having a family. Like, what kind of dad? What kind of dad do you think you want to be?
Definitely one that's present, that's throwing their kid sort of in the deep end, you know, like we're going out, we're getting rugged, we're doing some stuff.
Come with me, brother.
Yeah, in the car. Like I've got a big dog, he's like my son, so he comes in the car with me and we go everywhere. So I think that'll definitely be who I am. Like just jump in the car, we're going. Like we're out there, we're learning, we're doing stuff, we're getting dirty, like just what a kid should really do. And I think for me, like I was running around barefoot, you know, bashing my brother, he was bashing me, we were doing some, you know, some bad stuff. But I think it really, I loved it. I loved that life. And I didn't really enjoy school, but I learned so much more outside of that. But, you know, from school I networked and did things like that, which was something that I really take from that. But I learned so many more things outside of that with my dad and my mum and my brother. So something like that, and being able to provide for them and show them the world.
Bro, that's so cool. Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, bro. Like, I think I said at the start, I was super excited to have this conversation because I think we followed a similar path, and I sort of look at you as someone who, like, kind of where I want to be in the next couple of years, or 5, 10 years. Like, you're not that much older than me.
You're already there, man.
No way, but even like the way you transitioned out into like the ultra space, like I think it's so cool. Like, I'd love to get to the point to be able to travel around to doing like races and events, and sort of almost like build, like you talked about, like building a life that will support your like hobbies and things, and especially when you have a family one day. Like, I subscribe to that. I think that's really cool. So, and I got a lot of learnings out of today, man. So I'm very grateful for your time. Thanks for the session this morning, man. I'm keen to connect to you going forward.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, bro.
Thank you, bro.